All right, we are back on the Andre Duke Show with Carter Smith. How is everybody doing tonight? Monday Night Football doubleheader. Am just checking it out, seeing what we have going this evening. Just really just looking at the whole weekend in its totality. There's a lot of things that we've got to get to. Don't know if we'll hit everything in the show tonight. Um, it is packed. That's just typically how it goes after a big college football weekend. Just looking at it. Getting the links tweeted out. Also live on TikTok. Very interesting day to say the least. So yeah, there's that. Running over some of the bigger news that's not on the show sheet that I seen. Deshaun Foster out. His statement at the end of it, Deshaun Foster says, "Serving as the head coach at UCLA, my beloved alma mater, has been the honor of a lifetime. While I'm deeply disappointed that we were unable to achieve the success that our players and fans and university deserve, I am grateful for the opportunity and have led this program." That makes it tough on the Deshaun Foster side of things. Obviously, unfortunately, he does not get to continue on as the head coach at UCLA. He was also not the only other coach let go at UCLA, or well, not UCLA, but the only other person let go on Saturday, or well, Sunday. I mean, I guess you could call it a bloody Saturday. That is also something to be said there. We got Tampa Bay and Houston obviously going right now. Just very, very interesting times. They had Deshaun Foster let go. I'm not shocked that happened, to say the least. It's kind of it was kind of expected. I think that everything going into the year at UCLA, the Nico stuff, obviously it was going to be what it was. Questions in TikTok: who's the head coach at Florida next year? That is an interesting question. I guess we can get into the Billy stuff right now. In Florida's first 3 games, they've only allowed 2 touchdowns. LSU only scored 1 touchdown. South Florida only scored 1 touchdown, and then Long Island was a goose egg. I don't know, because I think you're going to see the thing with Florida is that they have a good roster. Do you want to fire Billy Napier mid-year and allow the other teams around the SEC to tamper with your roster? That's what you really got to ask yourself, to be honest. There's a lot that goes into that, because I think giving them an opportunity to tamper with the roster is not a good idea. I look at it as that Florida is, I'm not going to say a powder keg, but I mean, if you're Dan Mullen, you have to be laughing right now. Just some other things behind the scenes with that. Also, the Clemson Tigers bus, I guess when they were leaving Georgia Tech, hit a light pole and caved in the side of the bus. So that's kind of how that has been going for them. There's that. We'll get back to the Florida thing here in a minute. But also, I thought it was interesting that Dan Lanning addressed the Charlie Kirk situation after the game. His quote was, "That sort of evil should not exist in our country." I fully agree with Dan Mullen on that. Or not Dan Mullen, Dan Lanning. Just a very, very interesting news cycle for last week. But totally agree with Dan on that one. Just a deeply disturbing thing that went on at the at Utah Valley State University. I believe that was where that was at. So there is that. Moving on to some more positive things. Also, if you're watching on TikTok, hit the link in the bio and come on over to YouTube. That helps us. And hit the like and subscribe button. But there's that. Virginia Tech has parted ways with Brent Pry. Here's a list of CBS Sports comes up with a list of it. Shane Beamer, obviously, on that list. I don't think he'll go to Virginia Tech. I think that's the last place he would want to go, to be honest. That's just my opinion. I think that where it pops up, the Shane Beamer stuff, I don't know if that is going to where that's going to, obviously net out. But I just don't think that he's going to go to Virginia Tech. Michael Vick, obviously, don't really know. I mean, Virginia Tech would be taking a huge gamble if they were to roll with Michael Vick. The guy at JMU's on there, Alex Golish. So as more coaches seemingly probably get relieved of duty or lose jobs, they are going to, unfortunately, it's going to be Alex Golish's name is going to be linked to every job out there. I'm not shocked by that. I think that that's something that will happen always. Anytime there's a job opening, I think that it's going to be linked to Golish. I think he's going to be the number one candidate out of everywhere. Don't be shocked if the Gus Bus is also getting up there and getting linked to stuff. They got the guy at Western Kentucky linked. Pat Fitzgerald. That's a very interesting one. Pat Fitzgerald. Very, very, very interesting in my opinion to have him on there. Dan Mullen, Shannon Dawson, Hartline from Ohio State, Charles Huff, in GJ Guinea from Texas State, also candidates to look at. Just very interesting to say the least. I don't think that there's going to be I don't think there was going to be any real candidates that will emerge right now at the moment. So there is that. We'll have to see where that comes to fruition at. But, as always, we'll look at some scores. We'll do a look to next week. Big noon kickoff is going to be It's going to be at Rice Eccles in Salt Lake, Texas Tech, Utah. Nothing really too wild. Florida State's got Kent State. The 3:30 window's got a big game. Auburn, Oklahoma. I think that'll be fascinating to watch. Jackson Arnold coming back to Oklahoma to face Venables, his old team. It's going to be highly emotional. A lot of people on both sides. There's a lot of heat on the Auburn side, although I think Hugh has tampered that down. But it's going to be one of those let him lose a game and then it'll blossom into what it's going to be. It'll be the speculation all over again. Is Hugh Freeze out? What does it look like? Can he survive? Blah, 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 blah. The same stuff that's going on in Florida. But let's make no mistake, if the shoe was on the other foot, if Brian Kelly loses that game to Florida, I think the heat for how loud it is on the side of that Napier's getting, I think it's equally as loud as what it would be for LSU in Brian Kelly. Let's make no mistake about that. Also, other interesting games in the 3:30 window. Ole Miss Tulane. I don't know if Austin Simmons is going to play. That makes it very interesting for Ole Miss. They're like 12.5-point favorites. I think that they're going to lead with Simmons is probably going to play, blah, 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 blah. And then at the last minute, he's not going to. I don't think he plays this week because I just don't see it. It's because if you play him this week, you're going to need him for on the road at Athens. And also in the new playoff football format, you can take 2 losses. The committee has proven that. Also, Michigan on the road at Nebraska. Nebraska 3-0, Michigan 2-1. I don't know where Michigan nets out here. I think if they go on the road and win this game, I think they're right back in the thick of it for the playoff hunt. Some people would probably disagree with that. I think that that's kind of where they're sitting, to be honest. That is a big thing for Michigan. Oh man, Tampa's going to score again. Baker and the boys lighting them up on Monday Night Football. And then Notre Dame. I know I have a bunch of Notre Dame fans that watch this show. Notre Dame should beat Purdue at home. That's kind of where that's at. They're like big favorites. They're 26.5-point favorites. So I would say the Irish finally get in the win column, but they can't lose another one. I think that was the last one they could afford to lose, to be honest. I think Notre Dame's going to have a hard time getting in the playoffs, to be honest with you. Georgia Tech has Temple coming to town. We'll have to see what that looks like. I would say Georgia Tech wins they're 23.5-point favorites. Missouri 13.5-point favorites against South Carolina. South Carolina took one on the chin this weekend to Vanderbilt. Dave's here says I think they're already toast. Yeah, on the Notre Dame side of it, yeah, I hate to be that guy, but yeah, I think they might be. And then South Carolina, big dogs on the road at Missouri. And then you've got Florida, Miami. If you're a Miami fan, I'm not going to say that you're nervous, but I don't know if you can drop Indy has no championship game to put them in. That is a fair point, Dave. That is a good point Texas Tech, Utah. I think Utah wins that outright, to be honest. But Miami is only 3-point favorites against Florida. So that tells me something there. Unless they're just trying to get money on both sides. Illinois, Indiana is going to be very fascinating. NBC gets that one. I was really shocked Big Noon didn't go after that. I was really thinking that was going to be a Big Noon kickoff game, but I guess they don't think Indiana, Illinois is going to move the needle. LSU's got Southeast Louisiana. They're in Southeast Louisiana. We'll have to see where LSU comes out of that one. And then Phil Longo, the boys are going over Sam Houston, going over to Darrell K. Royal, going to be chasing turf over there. A lot of folks go Dogs. Arizona beats Iowa State next week. That's very possible. That is very possible. And then you have the 11 o'clock kickoff, which I'll stay up and watch that. USC Michigan State, 11 o'clock kickoff. I am sure the folks in East Lansing are going to love that. So there's a little bit of that. That's what we have coming up. The 2 stream games are going to be Arizona shoots at the top of the Big 12. We'll see. That is something to be said there, but I don't know. I think that next week a lot of people are downplaying it. I think the Auburn Oklahoma is going to be a heavyweight matchup. I'll be interested to see how that turns out. To be honest, that's one of the other bigger matchups that I've got. That we're streaming that, and then we're going to do a Florida Miami for the 7:30 window, and then probably do the call-in show after that. Just checking on that. But yeah, we'll get to some of the other topics. In the 2015 coaching staff at Alabama, Nick Saban, obviously the head coach, Lane Kiffin, head coach at Ole Miss, Kirby Smart, head coach at Georgia, Mario Cristobal at Miami, Billy Napier at Florida. The linebackers coach Josh is Dan's defensive coordinator. Mel Tucker is currently unemployed right now, but that's a wild coaching staff to have. And they wonder why Alabama was elite. And then I think Dan went to Georgia with Kirby, but there's that. That's a interesting endeavor, to say the least. But we're coming up on the end of the first segment. Roll Tide, I get you on that. Coming up to the end of the first segment, if you were watching on Twitter or watching on YouTube, hit that like and subscribe button and help us grow this thing. Appreciate everybody who is watching, and you guys on TikTok as well. If you guys want to hit the link in the bio on TikTok and come on over to YouTube, we'd be more than happy to have you. I might open the phone lines tonight. I'm not 100% sure yet, but I might just do that. Might open the phone lines for a little bit. But here are some of the notable week 4 matchups so you can see them. South Carolina, big dogs. I actually like South Carolina in that Missouri game. I like Auburn on the road. I think whoever wins the Auburn-Oklahoma game is probably going to the playoffs. Probably. Ole Miss, Tulane. I think that's a very fascinating matchup, to say the least. And then Indiana, Illinois. If Indiana wins that one, it's going to be hard to deny them, to be honest. Baylor, Arizona State, I think those two teams are fighting for their lives. I believe Arizona State might have been off this week after their trip down to Starkville. And then what's fascinating about this noon game, with it being at Utah, that's a 10 a.m. kick. I hope everyone realizes that it's 10 a.m. Mountain Time. I think Utah's on Mountain Time, but that's a 10 a.m. kick. So I find that fascinating that they have a 10 a.m. kick. Just looking at some other things, I find it very interesting. Get rid of those. Moving this over. Here's the shutouts from week 3, Indiana. Look at the crooked numbers hung up there. Western absolutely gets boat raced. Illinois, I just look at this list and say, I'm not shocked that IU ran the score up and Signetti ran it up against Indiana State. I'm really not. Not shocked that Satterfield would do that with I was trying to think of what in the world, where were they at? Houston Heights. Yeah, that's where that's at. What is this? I did not click the link for American Eagle, but yeah, those are the big blowout wins. Indiana leading the way 73-0. I think they scored like 35 points in one quarter, so there's that. Updated Heisman odds. I know everybody likes this. John Mateer leading the way, Castellanos second. Beck, I think Carson Beck and Marcel Reed. Pavia's in there. Devin Dampierre. If he goes out there and plays really well, it depends on what the ratings are. Caleb Downs is in there. But I think really the only people that have legitimate shots to win it, I don't think Pavia can win the Heisman unless Vandy goes to the playoffs. He's got to beat Texas and Alabama again. I think if he beats Texas and Alabama and goes to the playoffs, it'll be hard not to give him the Heisman. But Marcel Reed, if he keeps it rolling at A&M, because typically it's going to be the best player off of probably the best team, to be honest. That's just kind of where that's at. And then we have the Big Ten power rankings. Ohio State, Oregon, Penn State, no real shock out of the top 6. I think once you get here, some of these teams are going to start separating 7 through 12. Iowa, Minnesota, they're starting to. Washington, I would say that the guys 7 through 10, Nebraska, USC, Washington, Michigan State, playoff hopes are looking grim. UCLA is eliminated. Northwestern's not going to make it, obviously. Purdue not making it. I mean, technically, Wisconsin's still in it. Rutgers, Maryland, technically, they're still in it. But realistically, the Big Ten has one team that is eliminated with 3 losses. But I don't think UCLA is rattling off 9 in a row, just to be clear. But there's that. So we'll see. But I don't disagree with the Big Ten power rankings. I think that Indiana, Illinois will flip-flop. Michigan will probably move in front of them. It'll be fascinating to see who wins the Michigan-Nebraska game. That'll have Pete Thamel just sent out a tweet that says West Virginia launches plan to be top funding tier in the Big 12 amongst institutions. Wonder what they're doing there. Have to dig into that one. So there's that. So we'll see as the weeks go on throughout the season. More teams will eliminate themselves as far as the college football playoff picture goes. Here's the top transfer portal, folks. Here's everybody that I guess made an impact this week. Thad at Ole Miss. I believe he was at like Ferris State or something. I think that that's a big deal. That's I don't know. I pulled this and I was just thinking about it. Retzloff. We're gonna find out how good Retzloff is when he goes to Ole Miss. I'm just telling you that. It's going to be fascinating that they're going to have all of this going forward. But I think the Ole Miss Tulane game, when the news finally comes out, which will probably be around Wednesday, that Lane Kiffin will probably announce that Austin Simmons isn't going to play, you'll watch that line get cut in half, because I got Tulane at like plus 12.5. So there's that. I guess we can talk playoffs here. Here's the updated playoff thing via Andy Staples. He's got Texas Tech in, which is fascinating because he doesn't have Utah in there. And I don't quite understand why you wouldn't have Utah in there. Utah being the highest rated team in the Big 12. It's going to be interesting. Ohio State, number 1 overall seed, no shock there. But also, it kind of still screws you because, you get the winner of Oklahoma or A&M for your second round matchup. Penn State at 4, Miami 2, LSU at 3. So Andy Staples is thinking LSU, Georgia for the SEC championship, picking Tulane to win outright over South Florida. Find that interesting. Utah being one of the first 4 out, them and Iowa State. Florida State, Virginia Tech, obviously they're not going to put a conference matchup in there right out of the gate. So it would just be pretty much a replay of the ACC championship game, replay of the SEC championship game, possible replay of a Big Ten matchup that's already happened. This is the only quadrant that Andy Staples has that would be a new blood matchup. So let's just keep that in mind, to be honest. But as I look at it again, I think Tulane, yes. Oregon, yes. Penn State, yes. No, Giga Maggies. Ohio State, yes. A&M, Oklahoma. I think this whole thing, I think all these teams make it unless there's an absolute catastrophic collapse on the A&M side of things or Oklahoma side of things. That's the only way I don't see them getting in. Florida State, most likely. I just don't know if Georgia Tech is going to be able to get a bump in the polls enough to that. Irish for life. Whoa, Michigan at 6, I think is too high. No, Casey. Well, I think you're going to have a lot of interesting things on the way the playoff shakes out. And I think it'll be worse than next year. The only losses I see is LSU, UT, unless Arch keeps up, we take them. Oh, I think there is a world that Texas A&M absolutely beats Texas this year. I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility. And then this is just the second ranked matchup in the combo's history, Indiana, Illinois. I find that fascinating, to be honest with you. So I was at the A&M game. It was that bad. There was 50% Aggie fans there. Sorry, 40. Oh yeah, Texas A&M travels. I don't understand what people don't get about that. We're about halfway through the show. I guess we can open the phone lines. Don't need that. I will throw the number in the ticker if you want to call. Let me get there. Let me edit this. Just getting the number up for everybody. All right, the number is posted. If you want to call now. There is the number at the bottom of the screen if you want to call. Ashes to ashes, dust to dust. Thanks to Chris, our season is a bust. Ooh. Yeah. I figured the Chris Ash hate was going to be coming sooner rather than later. That's just what it is. Also, the phone lines are open if you want to call. Get your call in. We'll have the phone lines open for a little bit. That's just kind of what we're doing tonight. Also, Monday Night Football is going on, and that's that. But the number to call is on the bottom of the screen. Also, gonna most likely the phone number is 260-255-4069. If you want to call, go ahead and call now. That is what it is. I'm going to shut TikTok down. All right, TikTok, it's been real. Check you guys later. Taking calls. You can't hear them anyway. If you want to be a part of the show, come on over to YouTube. The link is in the bio. Peace. So there's that. But yeah, the number at the bottom of the screen, 260-255-4069 if you want to call. That is pretty much where we're at. Just looking at some stuff. The AP poll. We'll fill some time to see if some people want to call in. The AP poll, very interesting. They keep moving Texas down in it. Ohio State stays, Penn State and LSU stay. Miami moves up one spot. I believe they leapfrog Georgia. Not shocked by that. Miami had a pretty impressive win. Phone lines are open as well. Oregon slides too, but I think that's just because Miami had a big win. But Florida State moves up. Texas moves down one. A&M makes a big leap. They'd move up 6 spots. Alabama moves up a ton. Ole Miss, Iowa State, Oklahoma, and A&M move up a bunch. Some of the teams that stayed the same. I'm shocked that they kept Tennessee at 15. They had Georgia beat. They really did. They had the Dogs beat. I know some people would probably be upset by that, but they had the Dogs beat. Texas Tech moves up 4 spots. Georgia Tech, after beating Clemson, finally gets into the top 25. And they go right in front of Indiana. I think a lot of people on the Indiana thing, they're still a little gun shy on Indiana. Instead of putting them, higher in the rankings, because after last season with the Ohio State game, a lot of people wanted to make the call that said Indiana was overrated when they went to go play Ohio State. There's that, and then Vanderbilt slides in after a blowout win against. Here's a bad stat for Indy. Both UTSA and Utah State held Texas A&M to less yards than Indy did. Yeah, that is also a thing that factors into it. There is that. Irish, the phone lines are open. If you want to call, the number is 260-255-4069. If you want to call, it's wide open. We'll leave it open for a little bit longer. But there is that. Tampa Bay up right now on Houston. All right. Can you hear me, caller?
Yes, I can hear you.
All right. Who do we have tonight?
This is Irish for Life 99 calling from South Bend, Indiana, the mecca of college football, or used to be.
Yes. So you were at the A&M game.
Yes.
What was so it was about it was almost close to a 50-50 split the way you described in the chat.
I would say about 60-40. I mean, A&M definitely occupied. You had like the allotted tickets in the visitor section, but they occupied probably about 10 sections of pretty much 100% Aggie fans.
I'm not really shocked by that, because the amount of money that they've invested into their program, and I think it's finally paying off. They finally got rid of the Jimbo. They haven't got rid of Jimbo's contract, but Texas A&M can afford to just dump out $77 million to somebody that they don't want to coach there. And also, I think a lot of people discount how good Mike Elko is. And I watched quite a bit of Texas A&M when they did play UTSA and Utah State. They didn't play really well defensively, and I still don't think they've put it together on the defensive side of the ball either.
Oh, I agree. The one thing, I mean, as a Notre Dame fan, I'm disappointed just that Notre Dame fans are willing to let their tickets go. I understand that the season tickets are, terribly expensive, and season ticket holders try to make up their, losses by selling out the big games. But I mean, Notre Dame had a lot of big recruits there. I think we had about 5-star recruits at that game, and probably 20 or 30 others. And it doesn't look well for Notre Dame when kind of you have an Aggie takeover and then you lose, and then they're as loud as the home team. It almost seemed like we were at Kyle Field North.
Oh, it was that loud for A&M. I didn't have the audio on. I was streaming it live, but I think that I know a lot of Notre Dame fans are going to be mad when I say this, but they're staring 3-1 in the face, or 1-3 in the face, because I don't think that the trip down to Fayetteville is going to be a good one.
Oh, no, not the way our defense is playing. No, I totally agree with you. And, I'm a lot of things, but I'm not a homer. I've been going to Notre Dame games since 1972. Wow. I've been to over 240 home games, so it's like, I can be an honest ND fan and not drink the Kool-Aid, and well, nobody can at the same time. I'm not looking at like, okay, it's all gloom and doom, but how do you go from the number one ranked pass defense in the country last year to 118th so far this year?
And
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I look at it as I think that I'm trying to pull up the team stats right now. I think it's just kind of one of the all and out losses of what they had in the secondary with guys getting drafted. Because if you look at it offensively, they cannot run the football, which I am concerned about that. I am very concerned about the offensive line. I'm very concerned about the defensive line because one thing, I don't know if you watched the shows last week, they were kind of hit or miss, but leading up into it when I was getting the Texas A&M questions, I said Texas A&M, the one thing that Miami and A&M had in common is they are nasty up front. They are pushing, they are shoving, they are hitting you, and they are pounding on you. And the bigger takeaway I have from that is I don't think Notre Dame quit. I think Notre Dame's lack of detail in all three phases of the game hurt them. And then I also think that Texas A&M never gave up at all. They always believed they could win that game.
Oh, I agree. I agree. And the one thing about like Notre Dame's defense that I think that's different from last year, this year. First of all, they said, "Oh, it's going to be the thing." Chris Ash, when he took over for last coordinator, said this is going to be the same. Al Golden, thank you. Just having a little brain here. Said this is going to be the same defense. We're not going to. This is not the same defense. This is a totally different defense. We're playing, pretty much all zone right now. We have a smaller defensive line. We have quite a few. I mean, they're talented but smaller. Both Texas A&M and Miami outweighed us probably 30 to 40 pounds per man. But we are getting zero pressure. I mean, so I think we are missing, like the our defensive line from last year, and also, Watts, was a big part of the key of that. But I mean, we were supposed to have all these new defensive backs. We're all supposed to be great, and all supposed to be very talented. But I think the number one, is Chris Ash is the biggest problem right now. We've been covering for him a lot, but it's pretty scary how south this has went, and a lot of it comes down to scheme, and a lot of it comes down to technique. And
go ahead, finish your point, caller.
Yeah, and the only thing I was going to add is, thank goodness that Reed is not a very good deep ball thrower, because heck, if you put Carr on Texas A&M, they could have hung 60 on us. He missed some like wide open guys, go routes that had 3 or 4 steps on, our DBs.
Right. One thing I'll add when it comes to the defensive line, at the end of last year, Notre Dame had 40 sacks out of all the games they played. 40 sacks.
Yes.
This year, Notre Dame has 1 sack on the quarterback. 1.
Yep, and 4 pressures.
And
that's it.
I'm looking at that, and I think there's a gap on the defensive line. I think there's a gap on the offensive line because Carr's been sacked quite a bit this year. He's been sacked 5 times. I'm trying to think how many times Riley Leonard got sacked last year. I don't think it was many. He got sacked 20 times. One of the bigger fears coming into the season on the Notre Dame side of it, because I get accused of being a Notre Dame hater on the show every now and again, because I'll say some things that people don't like. But the problem is they have not been able to get Jeremiah Love going, and if you do not get Jeremiah Love going, this is going to be a long year. I'm not saying it's going to be 4-8. But you're staring 1-3 in the face, because going down to Fayetteville, if you can't run the ball and keep it away from Arkansas can score points. That's
yeah.
And go ahead.
Yeah. And while our offense I think improved this week, our offensive line has improved. I'm not saying it's good or great, but it did improve. I'd like to see the pass pro was a little better. Jeremiah did have about 160 yards, I think, all purpose. That wasn't all running. His yards per carry are way down from last year. I think it was 6.9 last year, and I think it's about not even 4 this year. So, yes, that needs to be markedly improved. Price had a good game. I'm happy with Carr. I mean, of course, it's the second game, but he's not making terrible decisions. He's made some bad ones, like clapping out of frustration and almost gave Texas A&M another score.
Right.
When the center snapped the ball. But overall, we're not going to win shootouts. We're not that kind of offense where we can win shootouts with teams.
No, and I think the lack of detail, obviously the PAT botch. I'm not going to try to bury the kid publicly on the internet or just it happened. I think people that are saying some of the things about him are just, it's how small of a person are you? He made a mistake. It happens. Obviously, I mean, that's just like the Tennessee kicker. They had every opportunity to beat Georgia, and they missed it, and that's what it is.
Yep.
But one of the bigger things that I would like to point out here, I'm going to go out on a limb and say Notre Dame will beat Purdue.
I think they will. Obviously it's Purdue, and we're at home, so I think we can, win that game. This is a true story, and I mean, because I just got the feel of the game and how Texas, was playing. When we missed that extra point, I literally tapped the Aggie fan next to me and said, "You just won the game." And he's like, "What are you talking about?" I'm like, "We're not going to stop you." And sure, and I mean, Texas, I mean, A&M, they did everything they could to let us win that game. What do they have? 5 penalties on that final drive?
Yeah, they had a bunch of penalties.
And people, and ND fans, not including myself, complain because the very last play there was a holding. Hey, you know what? You never leave the game in the ref's hands. And it's not like we didn't have our chances to stop them way before that. So it's like, no, Texas A&M 100% and deserved to win that game. And actually, to be honest with you, they should have won by more.
And also, like, I look at it because I've seen a lot of complaining about a lot of people slowing the play down and putting it on the internet, getting a bunch of views off of it. I looked at it, and I don't comment on a lot of stuff, but I just wanted to say, hey fellas, do you think giving up 41 points is conducive for winning football?
Oh yeah, I mean, you know what? Yeah, I was your voice then.
So I'm just like, you give up 41 points and you expect to win a game that way? I mean, It's lucky that Notre Dame put up 40 and made it a game.
Yep, I agree.
And
and here's also a stat that is depressing for a Notre Dame fan. Texas A&M had 28 points at half. That's the most points that a Notre Dame allowed an opponent has allowed at half, not including postseason games, just regular games, since 2002. Tyrone Willingham against Michigan, I believe that was.
Those are not good numbers.
Nope. So, and I wish there was one thing I could point at, Andre, to say this is what we needed to fix this defense. There's just too much. I mean, there's run gap discipline. There's pass rushing with not getting any, even with blitzing, we're not getting any pressure ever, leaving, Reed had all day to throw again. And when you're playing zone defense, you're not playing it very well. It doesn't take long for them to find the soft spot.
Right. I was also on the side of it to where I thought the reason why they played zone was to keep him in the pocket and try to make him make decisions so he didn't have to beat Notre Dame with his feet, because it was going to be a long day if he got outside the pocket and could run around and create, ad-lib, do things with his legs. For all intents and purposes, they kind of kept him in the pocket, but he still made plays, and that's kind of where he got better. But also, real quick, I wanted to go down the schedule here, because outside of Purdue, on the road at Fayetteville, I think that's a toss-up. They have Boise State coming back to Notre Dame. I believe they have a open date in there. Then they have NC State. I don't think they'll have any issues with NC State. Then you have USC coming to town, and we're gonna see what the Trojans look like. And I've been telling people all year since the schedule came out, I don't like on the road at Boston College. I don't like that.
I was just getting ready to say that myself.
Notre Dame never plays well at Boston College. On the road at the end of the year, it's going to be the beginning of November. It's probably going to be the coldest weekend of the year because the last time when I think it was what was that, the year they made it to the Natty, they went to Boston College and had zero offense that night, and they barely won. Zero offense.
Yeah, and they took it to Michigan State.
Yeah.
This year, and no, I think that's a team that. So I'm thinking like 8-4 is our ceiling. 6-6 or 6-5 is our low part. I don't know. What is your thoughts on? But the wheels could definitely come off. I mean,
if they come out and they look complete against Purdue, that's a positive. But the thing that concerns me is from week 1 to week 2, and they had a bye week in there, and they didn't look any better on defense. I think that's going to be
regressed.
I think that's going to be the story on defense, because I'm telling you, Arkansas's offensive line, Sam Pittman's an offensive line coach, and Arkansas's nasty up front. They play in the SEC. That's big time football, and they kind of get bullied a little bit. And if you're Notre Dame and you got bullied by Miami, you got bullied by A&M, Purdue, I don't know how much of a fight Purdue's going to put up. Notre Dame's 26.5-point favorites in that game. It's going to get interesting. If they want to make the college football playoff, they have to win out in convincing fashion in order to have a sniff at it, because 2 losses is going to be rough.
Yeah, I mean, Notre Dame is no longer in control of their own destiny anymore as far as that goes, and I have seen absolutely nothing that convinced me that they're even near a playoff team.
No, not in the first
at this point.
Not in the first 2 games. Now, if USC keeps on winning and Notre Dame can stay in the top 25 and sneak a win away from USC, that might catapult them up. Because last year, one of the things that helped SMU get in the playoffs, which I was vehemently against, was SMU beat Pitt in, I think, week 6 or 7. And Pitt was undefeated at the time. They were like 5-0 or 6-0. They might have been 7-0, and they lost the rest of the year. They lost 5 in a row, but that win helped elevate them up in the playoff standings. So the games that I have circled for Notre Dame is Arkansas, USC, Boston College, and Stanford.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. One personal observation that I had that really also concerned me is during A&M's last drive, Ty Buckner, Kenny Minchie, and another player, I don't know who it was, were all standing on the sideline laughing and joking with each other. And I'm like, what does that tell you about the team? Where's the mentality that, have we already lost this team? Is this and I can't imagine this is like a Freeman team. It just doesn't seem, I don't know. I just have a bad vibe for this entire team. It just doesn't seem to have that toughness or that, what was Freeman's, let's play with violence, last year. I don't see that happening. We look slower. We look like softer. And it almost seems like we're not having any contact during, practices.
I would think I think the tackling is substantially worse.
It is. Yeah.
I think that I'm trying to think of how to put this in context. they've got a lot of issues. I think if some of that is going on, I think that's going to get reported back to Marcus Freeman, because it's probably on the internet somewhere, and some staffer's going to see that about the guys laughing and joking and carrying on the sideline. I look at this, and this gives me, the team itself gives me Brian Kelly vibes as far as attention to detail. Is that fair?
No, yeah. At this point, I see that. And the one thing that was really disappointed with Freeman is he kind of did a Kellyism after the game, and he kind of threw the players under the bus, saying, "Hey, that the players are not executing." Sorry, maybe so, but it's like, why are they not executing? I mean, the whole scheme looks off. I mean, they look lost, and if they're lost, I mean, that's a coaching thing.
And I think that Marcus has. I think with Al Golden, you didn't have any issues, because Al Golden was he's been a head coach, defensive coordinator, he's been doing it a long time. Not to say that Chris Ash doesn't know what he's not doing. I think Marcus is treating this as if Al Golden is still his defensive coordinator, and he doesn't need to go down there and see what they're doing.
Yeah. Well, I would hope that after this week, Freeman sees the light, and I wouldn't necessarily kind of turn Ash into a eunuch and say, okay, you're here in body, but I'm calling the plays now, and then maybe by the end of the year, you just kind of quietly go away, because Notre Dame's not going to get rid of Chris Ash in the middle of the season. And I don't even, I'm not those kind of fan that's kind of like, okay, let's fire everybody. We had a bad week, let's fire everybody and start over. No, absolutely not. I mean, first of all, that just reflects bad on you don't want to be a coach coming to a university to say, hey, first bad game, we're going to get rid of you. Right. So I don't feel like I'm knee jerking here, where I'm saying that I think there needs to be a serious change. And I'm not saying fire Ash, but I think he needs to be relegated back to a, not a head coordinator, but more like a position kind of coach. And I think that Freeman needs to pretty much take over the defense again.
I would not be shocked if his fingerprints aren't on it next week.
Yeah, yep. And I think he's, his press conference today was trying to be very diplomatic, and not throw Chris Ash under the bus, But I mean, I know he's not a dumb coach either. I know he knows what's going on. He sees what's going on, so he can watch film and.
Oh, it's one of those things that I think he'll see it, and I think he'll correct it. Now, do I think he'll overcorrect it? No. I just feel like, but we also have to remember, this is Marcus is still a first-time head coach in the
right
in college football. Yep. And I hate to keep using the Ohio State example, but Ryan Day had massive issues on defense for the Buckeyes for years. As soon as cannot think of his name, he was the head coach at Boston College. But he's Green Bay's defensive coordinator. When he left, it kind of fell apart because Ryan hired Kerry Combs. That didn't work out. And then they brought in Jim Knowles, and it finally worked out, but it took 2 years to get it figured out. But the overwhelming majority is I was seeing a lot of things on Twitter about people talking about, do we need to look for a new head coach at Notre Dame? And I'm just like, come on.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I'm not there. So, and are you speaking of Jeff Haley? Is that who you were?
Oh, Jeff Hafley.
Hafley. Oh, yeah, Hafley. That's right. Okay. So
I couldn't think. But, yeah, once Hafley left, he had one really good year, got the Boston College job, and he dipped out. And that's right. Kind of what it was. But I look at that, and I just think that, other programs have had struggles where they've maybe hired the wrong guy. But I think that Chris Ash came highly recommended. He worked with Fickell at Ohio State, and he won a national championship at Ohio State with Urban Meyer and Luke Fickell. And, Marcus worked for Fickle for a long time, and I don't see how this doesn't. I think that they can get better. It's just going to be too late. I don't think the people who made the schedule did them any favors. You open with Miami, and then
no, I agree. Yeah, that was
then you come back.
Unfortunate.
You come back, and then you open with it. Then your home opener is Texas A&M. Great games, but that's what that's what the Notre Dame schedule is, and then you get a little bit of a reprieve. You get Purdue at home. We'll see how that is. I can tell you this much: if that is a close game, I think the warning signs or sirens are going to start going off, because going on the road to Fayetteville is not going to be an easy task, and it's going to be at high noon. It's going to be hot. It is going to be miserable in Fayetteville. That's all I'm saying.
No, and I agree. Unfortunately with Notre Dame, I mean, it was a bit of a perfect storm. I actually picked us to go 1-1 in the first two games. I thought we'd win against Miami, and I honestly did pick us losing against A&M. Even to the chagrin of my Notre Dame fans on our boards, because if a Notre Dame fan picks another team to win, you're pretty much ostracized to begin with.
Right.
But new offense, new quarterback, a lot of new starters on defense, talented, but I mean, we are small up. We don't have any true defensive, nose tackle. Big butts filling holes. I mean, we're small.
Like, who was that kid last year? Riley
Mills.
Yes, Riley Mills up front. We do not have one of them. So I think that with the amount of losses that they had for as many guys that went pro, I think that's probably one of the top Notre Dame defenses in the history of Notre Dame that walked out the door last year. And the standard is also very high. I think that for all intents and purposes, we could be talking about this, and A&M and Miami could definitely be playoff teams.
Oh, I totally agree. And I am shocked, and actually, I don't think it's correct that Notre Dame, obviously the AP and coaches must believe that Notre Dame is a top 25 team, losing that close to those two teams to keep them in the top 25. And 0-2, I don't remember the last time an 0-2 team was in the top 25.
Well, also, and not that I'm trying to make light of this, but let's just think of it this way. If you are Notre Dame in Marcus Freeman, you're 4 points away from being 2-0.
That's true. I mean, that is true.
I'm just throwing that out there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you could be Florida right now, sitting at 1-2, and only defensively gave up 2 touchdowns in 3 games, and be 1-2. So
I guess more to my thing is that rather than the numbers is actually the optics, watching it and seeing kind of how poorly we played, and maybe I'm just being the ultimate negative Nelly, half glass full, which I'm usually not. I'm usually a lot more positive, but watching these games, I mean, it could have been a lot more lopsided against Notre Dame. We got some breaks, in those games to give us chances to win.
Yeah, and I guess we'll close it out with this. My final take on the Notre Dame side of it is that the schedule makers didn't do them any favors. Notre Dame played 2 playoff games in 3 weeks. When they get into the meat of the schedule, I think that they're going to beat Purdue. Arkansas is a toss-up. They'll beat Boise. They'll beat NC State. And I don't know how good USC is. I've watched them a little bit, but they haven't really played anybody, so you really don't know how good they are. Boston College is worrisome. Marcus needs to be studied on how he shuts down the triple option, because he does that every year anytime he plays any of the Naval Academy schools or the military schools. Pitt, I just think Pitt is an absolute dumpster fire. Pat Narduzzi stinks. I know a lot of people like Narduzzi, but Pittsburgh, the University of Pittsburgh, they should be in the MAC. And Syracuse with Angeli and Fran Brown, I don't know what that's going to be. I really don't know.
I don't think that's a gimme. I mean, I know they haven't really played anybody either, but I mean, Steve Angeli's actually having a pretty good year. You know, he's taken some sacks that he shouldn't, but I mean, and that was kind of, you know, he doesn't have that escapability, but he'll probably get somewhat better. I don't think he's necessarily an NFL player, but I think he's done a job, you know, pretty steady job with Syracuse.
So,
and I don't think he'd love anything more to come to and, you know, light him up.
Right. And then the last one is Stanford. I just don't count out Frank Reich and Andrew Luck to play spoiler because it would be the most Stanford thing in the world.
Yeah. I don't know if there can be a spoiler this year, Andre. I think we've done that spoiled.
Well,
but it's all good. Hey, you know what? From now, it's not. You can't even look 2 games, 3 games ahead. You've got to focus on your first quarter of your next game. You know, just trying to get through that. You know, and try to get a win under your belt. That should be Freeman's number one thing right now.
Yeah, I hear you, Irish. I appreciate you calling in. I think as long as I'm still solo, I think at the end of the show every night, like the last 20 minutes, I'll be opening the phone lines. So there is that. So keep that in mind. But I appreciate you calling in, man. We will talk to you later.
Yeah, it's good to talk to you. All right, Henry. Have a good evening.
Yep, you too. All right. Appreciate Irish for calling in. Appreciate that. I think that's something we're going to do as long as I'm solo. The last like 20 minutes or so, we'll open the phone lines, let you guys call in. Appreciate everybody watching tonight. If you can do me a favor, hit that like and subscribe button and help us grow this thing. I think we're going to end it there tonight. Appreciate everybody. We'll be back tomorrow. And we'll see what type of news that we have going forward. So with that, appreciate everybody, and we'll talk to you guys later. Have a good evening.